Hi everyone, it's Heidi from flutterbyheidi.co.uk and I'm Heidi Smith, independent Stampin' Up demonstrator based in the United Kingdom, and today I'm doing another one of my Poinsettia Place Suite projects, and this is to show you the versatility of this stamp and die set, and shows you some ways that you can use some of it, all of it, or just bits of it. So the actual suite itself has a whole range of goodies, but primarily there's a stamp set, there's coordinating dies, there's two types of designer series paper, and then there are some embellishments as well, like a lovely sheer ribbon and these beautiful beaded pearls as well. So the paper that we're using, it's double-sided 12 by 12, so you get two sheets each of the 6 designs, and on the one side it's a larger image, a smaller image on the reverse, and a more overall sort of pattern. So you can see some sort of lovely sort of wintry themed. This is probably my favourite paper with the berries on it, and lovely tones of green as well. So you've got old olive and garden green in there. As well as a bit of yellow with a bit of bumblebee, and that's probably my they're all my favourites. No, I love the holly paper as well. So those are the papers that we're going to use, and this card uses the papers. The dies themselves, as you can see here, I've just sort of done a bit of a layout to just to show you what you can do with these. So what you can do is you can stamp and die cut, and those dies cut out these lovely images, including some of the images on the paper, which are this flower here. So you can stamp and die cut. You can die cut and emboss, which there you go. Let's try and catch the light. Actually, that's a bit rubbish light today, actually. Let me just see if I can bring in... There you go, that might be a bit better. So these are embossed. There are some dies that just cut out shapes, so you can see here, and then there's some leaves, so stamp and die cut, and then the stamps add some detail. So you'll see I've coloured these slightly just using one of the stamps in the stamp set as well, and again there's some infills for these as well, and you could use this one for either the holly leaf or to colour the branch a bit more. And then here's an example of that, hopefully, die cut and embossed leaf. So what I'm going to do today is actually, we're not going to do any stamping, we're just going to focus on the paper and the dies. Now the sample I've made here, this is using one of our golden hoops, which come in a pack. You can see here, gold hoop embellishments, and you get 10 in a pack, 152474, they're great. And I've used this to create a little mini wreath that you can see here. And I've created a card that holds the wreath, but also means it's detachable. So it's you send somebody your card, they receive it, they can take off our embellishment and hang it perhaps on their Christmas tree or in a corner of their room, and then they've still got a pretty card that they can use as well. And this one has got a blank space on the back, which you'll see if you've got the stamps you could stamp on as well. So that's our little mini wreath that we're going to create. And to decorate the front there, you'll see I've used just one of the focal images, which I've just fussy cut out, and I've already done one of those ready to go as well. Now this one is stamped and die cut, but I thought to give it a bit more dimension, we'd focus on doing some that are actually just die cut. So the way these work, a couple of hints and tips for you here. First of all, if you've got a big shot, mine's an old big shot now, yeah, it is what it is. Obviously you'll need some card. I've used real red, and when you pop your outline dies, you'll see here, put them face down, and what I do is I put a little mark just to show where those line up, just to save constantly moving them about. When you put them in, try and make sure you've got a gap all the way around. So if you've got the magnetic plate, that is really, really useful. So you'll see I'll do the same on these other ones as well. I would often cut out a separate piece of paper so I can space them out on my plate. And in fact, I'm not using the biggest one. I'm only using the two. In fact, I'm just using the smallest one actually on that wreath. So I don't need to do that. But you do get two of these little ones as well. So those can go through. So all I would do is run that through my embossing machine several times to get the number of images that I want. But what I also do is pop a shim in there. So to get that deep embossing, either use a thick cardstock or just put an extra piece of card, scrap card, the back off some DSP, something like that, and run those through. And you will find the larger floral image, they come out really easily because they're quite an open sort of shape. But the smaller ones, you might just need to pop your pokey tool on those, or you take your pick depending on what you've got. But they literally just, they've got a couple of release holes, so just pop a pin even, and you'll see that those emboss beautifully. And I say, because there's two of those, you know, you can whistle through those really quickly. And then the other one, just lift it up and you'll see it embosses really well anyway, but if you wanted that extra depth, then just pop it through with a shim on it as well. The other thing you could do is you could ink up those veins on the dies and then pop it through as well, and that adds a bit of extra dimension too. So let's crack on with our card. So you are going to need, I've used a piece of real red, which is 14.5 by 10.5. I've then got a piece of Whisper White for the reverse, which is 14 by 10. And then for that panel on the front, I've taken some soft suede and cut it at 7 centimetres by 21 and just scored that in half at 10.5 centimetres. Then you can choose, I've chosen to use a whole piece of my DSP for the front here. That's going to layer on the front. So again, that's the same as my Whisper White for the back. That's 10 by 14 centimetres. So let's add some of these layers now. So I'm just using my seal because this is not, not a movable bit. So we can pop that on the front there. Just layering that up. And then obviously stamp on your reverse if you wanted to first. You could add the Merry Christmas sentiment if that's what you wanted, or a note, or even a, take the ornament off and hang it on your tree. And then just pop that on the back there. Okay. There's our basic card. This piece is then going to go just on the front, whatever point that you want, and it's also going to have a layer of DSP on the front, so 6.5 by 10 centimetres, and a layer of Whisper White for the inside as well. So I'm going to pop my Whisper White on the inside, just pop that in there so we've got something to write on, and then to create that aperture, I'm going to pop my DSP on first, onto the front. And then I'm going to come in with a hole punch. Now I'm using this one here. What I want to do is I want to come in fairly near the top, and I want to make sure that they're lined up. So I'm just going to use the side of my punch to line it up. Mine happens to have a little gauge on the side, so you can see there I can just line it up so it'll be even, but it depends on your own punch. I just line that up as well, and then all I'm going to do is cut across the middle there. Now you could use a knife if you wanted to, so if you've got a craft knife you could cut across with it, or you can literally just, as long as you go towards the top of it, you can just cut straight across there, because all you want to do is make sure that your thread has got somewhere to sit into. So now you've done that, we can pop that onto the back, onto our card. I'm just using my Seal Plus because I'm attaching this onto the front of a card, and it's kind of going to it's having something added to it, and I'm positioning that about 1/3 of the way across. So now we can crack on with our little mini wreath. So we take one of our hoops and we're going to get all of our flowers. So I have die cut these in advance. There we go. Look at that, a shower of them. And actually what I'm going to do is, on the previous one I used my bone folder to curl. And what I'm actually going to do is use those creases introduced by the embossing to change those petal shapes. So again, because the poinsettia has got sort of quite, you know, it's got all sorts of different shapes. So I'm just going to create 3 of those. And you can see all I'm doing is just using the crease that's already there to create our flower. Okay. I'm just using a bit of wet glue in the centre of a couple of those, and I'm just going to offset that slightly, almost sort of not quite in the middle of those, but then I'm then going to put that in the gap that's there. So I'm going to pop that to one side, and that's where I'm going to put my beaded pearl, into that main one. So I'm going to grab one of those out, and you'll find that glue dots are really useful for this. So if you grab our glue dots, you'll see they're a good size, and just pop a glue dot on the back there to create our flower. Now, one of the problems you have with these is making these little mini wreaths. They look lovely on the front, but not so good on the back. So I'm going to show you how to improve the look of that on the back as well. So take your wreath, and we're going to create our little flowers. Now, the smaller ones are more difficult to crease. So what I'm doing is I'm just using my thumbnail to come in with that. If your thumbnails aren't quite long enough, then if you grab, take your pick attachment, which hasn't got here, okay, grab your bone folder and just use that. You can see I'm just creasing down in the middle there. Okay, so again, so as I say, they look lovely whether they're stamped and die cut or whether you're just using the dies. So if you haven't got the stamps but you have the dies, you can still create some fabulous looking projects using these. So the embossing is lovely on the thicker cardstock. It looks really, really pretty. But as, again, you know, with some of my other projects I'm using different colours, so moved away from the traditional colours as well. So here we go. The other things you're going to need, I should have said at the start, you probably want some dimensionals as well as the glue, and I'm also going to be using some of our pearls, she says, hopefully, optimistically, that I've got handy. Right, okay. I've also die cut some of these from shaded spruce, just a really strong sort of green, and a couple this time from vellum to kind of soften it as well. So all my spares I'm going to pop to one side, and then we can just layer up these, and obviously if you don't like the wet glue you could easily use a glue dot on these. That would actually work as well if I show you. So you can either pop them, and what I'm doing is I'm just offsetting, if you look, not quite in the middle, to add an extra layer. Again, you can just pop a dimensional in the middle, not even a dimensional, a glue dot in the middle there, to create our third little flower. Okay, and the last one, so again, pop your glue dot just in the middle on the back there, pick that up and then just layer that in between to create a kind of layered flower. So now to attach them, and if you look, what I've actually done is I have used a variety, I don't know, you can see I've used some rolled up glue dots and some dimensionals on the back there to kind of sandwich them. So first thing I'm going to do is add some kind of glue dots. I'm going to use my pick tool instead. And I'm just adding glue dots, almost in sort of like a little semicircle at the bottom here. Because they are so sticky, really good. And they will stick to that edge, and if they stretch at all, then that's okay. And what I'm going to do is pop my main flower on first, and then I'm going to come in with my other flowers, so then you'll be able to see where to put your extra glue dots. So I'm going to pop one up here, and I'm going to pop one again just on the outer edge over here, so I can just lift up the petals and fit those flowers in behind on the edge, because you still want to be able to see them. Then I'm going to turn over, and this is where I'm going to come in with my dimensionals. So I'm going to add dimensionals either side of that ring, that little hoop. And add my spray. So I'm going to add a shaded spruce on each side. I am, when I can pick it up. Okay, just touching those to those, and I'm just going to add my vellum ones just behind as well, like so. Now obviously that doesn't look very elegant, does it? So what I've done is just taken a couple of punches, and it depends on the size punch that you happen to have. I've got a sort of 1 3/4 and a 2 I think a 2 inch and a 2 1/4 inch. So, and I'm just creating, pinging that up into the camera, a little background for that. And I'm actually going to use my wet glue on the back there, and I'm just going to pop that over the back and just press that in place. Because the Tombow is kind of a rubbery glue, you'll find it'll attach really well. And then all that remains is me to add something just to bring those to life. So I'm adding just some of our ordinary pearls to the centre, and you can see all of a sudden those poinsettias come to life, don't they? So all that remains now is for us to attach a little bit of thread, whatever gold or silver thread you happen to have. You could use a bit of baker's twine, and all I've done is just sort of cut a length of about sort of 12 inches. I think this one is it from Boho Indigo? I can't remember, it might be. And I've just tied a double knot in the bottom, added that to my loop, and then all I'm going to do is just feed that through like so. Keep it quite high on the top. Obviously the right way around is a good idea, so it's nice and tight. And then all I'm going to do is pop in with a bit of my washi tape that I happen to have available. Just snip that off. You might want an extra bit, as I've made that a little bit long. It's clearly about 11 inches, not 12 inches, I'm guessing. There we go. And then if you want to add something extra to the front of your card, just die cut one of these, shape it very slightly using your bone folder, stick a couple of dimensionals on the back, because my large dimensionals aren't to hand. Well, they are, they're pretty buried. And then once that's in place, you can pop that just behind, like so. And there we have a mini gold gold hoop wreath ready to pop on a Christmas tree, and I think that would make a lovely